The show begins as we're introduced to a woman named Akane who works as an erotic manga artist. She's currently on the brink of failure as she has no serialized work of her own and is struggling with financial problems. Due to this, she's unable to pay for her apartment and has just been evicted. Furthermore, she's having troubles coming up with good story ideas due to a lack of romantic experience. At the moment, Akane is at a cafe when she notices a handsome guy named Takashiro at a nearby table. She becomes so mesmerized by his looks that she decides to use him as her main character in her new manga. Just then, Takashiro's girlfriend arrives and begins accusing him of cheating. He responds casually that it was just a one-time thing. Takashiro then proceeds to kiss her, but the woman splashes water on him and storms off in anger. Seeing this, Akane comes up with the idea of a playboy character who falls in love with a simple girl. While she's immersed in her work, Takashiro sits in front of her and asks if she's drawing him. Akane is startled and nervously admits that she's simply inspired by his character. The two of them start talking and Takashiro discovers that she's having trouble finding a place to live, so he invites her to stay with him at his house as his girlfriend has recently broken up with him. Akane is hesitant, but with nowhere else to live, she accepts his offer. She also asks if she can use him as a reference for her manga, to which he gladly agrees. Following this, the two begin living together and Akane finds out that Takashiro is a womanizer. This serves as excellent inspiration for her manga character. Every day he shares his experiences with her and she notes them for her work. After a few days of writing, Akane shows her draft to her editor, hoping for a positive response. Unfortunately, she still criticizes her, claiming that the erotic scenes lack depth. She then asks Akane to write about the character's thoughts when they kiss. Later at home, our heroine is depressed because she has no real-life romance experience. Shortly after, Takashiro approaches her and asks her what's wrong. She sobs and admits that her editor chastised her for lacking depth in her kissing scenes. She asks Takashiro how it feels to kiss someone, and he says she will never know unless she tries. He then gently approaches her and kisses her passionately. Because this is her first ever kiss, Connie experiences a whole new range of emotions. After they part, she quickly rushes to her room and notes this experience. The next day, Akane decides to draw a date scene in her manga. Since she doesn't have any experience, she again asks for Takashiro's help. She looks up some ideas online and then asks him out, to which he gladly agrees. On their date, Takashiro borrows a nice car from his senior and picks her up. The first place they head to is a clothing store, where Akane tries to surprise him by wearing cute clothes. However, she doesn't feel confident in her choices and feels bored. She then suggests that they watch a movie and have a French dinner, but Takashiro claims that he has something else in mind. In the next scene, we see the two relaxing at home, reading manga and eating fast food in their pajamas. A delighted Akane claims that she never thought a home date could be so fun. The conversation soon gets lively and she opens up to Takashiro about a painful incident when her manga series was canceled. She then shows him the first letter she ever received, in which a fan claimed that her work saved her life. Akane confesses that during rough times, she often thinks of this letter and refuses to give up. After this, Takashiro asks about her past relationships, and Akane replies that a few years ago she used to date a man whom she met online. However, things didn't work out because she was always busy with work, and he felt like a low priority in her life. At the end of their date, Akane thanks him by treating him to a variety of ice creams. As they enjoy their treat, Takashiro surprises her by initiating a kiss. Akane doesn't resist and passionately kisses him back. Later, she writes this romantic moment into her manga. The next morning, Akane submits her draft, and this time her editor praises her, claiming she's finally grasping the essence of the erotic genre. This makes our heroine happy because her tireless efforts have finally paid off. Later, when she returns to the apartment, she discovers that her mother has made a surprise visit. Mom is mad and concerned that a man is living with her daughter. However, Takashiro introduces himself, explaining that he's an office worker during the day and Akane's manga assistant at night. This surprisingly convinces Mom, and she doesn't complain any further. The following day, she arrives to meet Takashiro outside his office. However, she notices him surrounded by several women who are flirting with him. To make matters worse, she overhears Takashiro saying that he has a policy of not having one specific girlfriend. This infuriates Mom, so she immediately goes to meet Akane. She advises her daughter that it's not good to live with such a womanizer. However, Akane somehow manages to convince her mother that she's fine and asks her to leave. But afterwards, she falls into deep thought and wonders if she should listen to her mother's advice. In the evening, Akane attempts to work, but she feels frustrated and can't make any progress. When Takashiro comes home and sees her struggling, he offers to help. He then unexpectedly pushes her to the floor and starts taking his clothes off. Although tempted by Takashiro's bold move, Akane refuses him and insists that she needs to focus on work. The following day, she completes her first manga and submits it. The editor praises her work and is surprised by her recent growth. Later at home, Akane shares the good news with Takashiro, who is also very happy for her. She now wants to know what happens after the kiss so she can include it in her manga. Takashiro moves closer and asks her to find out, but she refuses, claiming that even the female protagonist of her manga dislikes a womanizer like him. Hearing this, Takashiro promises not to have a relationship with another woman until Akane's manga series is completed. This makes her very happy, and the two begin kissing each other. They eventually move to their bed and end up making love. The next morning when Akane wakes up, she notices Takashiro next to her and finds him adorable. She then sketches a picture of him with his eyes still closed. Afterwards, she calls her mother and tells her that she understands her worries as a parent. However, she won't be moving out because she needs Takashiro for her manga. That afternoon at work, Takashiro is approached by a senior named Kurihara, who asks if he'll be attending a blind group date. Our hero responds that he doesn't do that anymore because he's found someone special. This surprises Kurihara, as he never thought a womanizer like Takashiro could fall in love. Meanwhile, Akane meets with her editor, who tells her that she's receiving a good response from the readers. However, she suggests that Akane add more characters to express emotional turmoil. Later at home, Akane is doing the chores when Takashiro returns home. Once again, he offers himself to be used as a reference, but Akane replies that she needs to add other people into the mix. This makes him a little upset, but he doesn't express anything. The following day, Akane goes to her favorite cafe where the owner gives her chocolate for free. This sparks an idea in her mind, and she fantasizes about a scene where a female lead romances the cafe owner. Later on her way home, she encounters an attractive neighbor and then a package delivery guy. She fantasizes about them both and decides to incorporate their characters into her manga. In the following days, Akane works all night and falls asleep in the early hours of the morning. But by the time she wakes up, Takashiro is already left for work. And when he returns home, she's deeply engrossed in her work. A few days later, they finally have a chance to connect. Akane expresses her worry that he might have been avoiding her because of her constant work. But Takashiro clarifies that he simply didn't want to disturb her and then gives her a gentle hug. Later, the two head to the cafe where Akane thanks the owner for inspiring her new character. This makes Takashiro jealous, but he doesn't say anything. The cafe owner then starts making some desserts and Takashiro helps him. As they talk, our hero learns that the cafe owner genuinely cares about her, but more like a little sister and nothing more. Meanwhile, Akane is excited to see them bonding and takes pictures of them in the kitchen. She then asks them to pose in various positions so she can draw them in her manga. After returning home, Akane looks at the photo she took earlier with satisfaction. However, she notices that Takashiro seems a bit upset by these new characters, so she asks him to read her work till the end. Despite being swayed by the attractiveness of several men, her heroine eventually realizes that she loves only the main lead. Upon learning this, Takashiro is delighted and hugs her from behind. He then takes her right arm and puts a bracelet on it, claiming it's a birthday present for her, making her very happy. The following morning, Akane notices Takashiro walking with a woman she doesn't know. The two seem to be getting along well, which makes her jealous. Later, when she returns home, Akane sees the same woman at her place. Turns out, she's Takashiro's distant cousin named Mei, and they grew up together. Mei introduces herself and mentions that she's a fan of Akane, as she aspires to be a manga artist herself. Furthermore, she seems to have feelings for Takashiro, and the two begin getting close while playing around with each other. Unable to bear the sight, Akane decides to go to the cafe to focus on her work. However, she finds it difficult to concentrate as she constantly worries about what they might be doing. Back at home, Takashiro is preparing dinner when Mei dresses provocatively and tries to seduce him. He rejects her advances and asks her to put some more clothes on. Mei becomes angry and urges him to move on from what happened years ago, but this only annoys our hero, and he asks her to leave him alone. When Akane finally returns, the three of them sit down and have dinner together. During this, Takashiro tries to urge Mei to leave, but she insists on staying over. Later, while the two girls are bunking together, Mei confides in Akane that she has known Takashiro since childhood and doesn't want him to get hurt. Our heroine listens attentively but doesn't understand what she's talking about. Unable to sleep, she goes to the living room and finds Takashiro still awake. Moments later, Mei wakes up to some noises in the living room. When she rushes to check, she finds Akane taking pictures of Takashiro for her manga. Our girl suggests they draw together, and Mei excitedly agrees. The girls then begin sketching, while Takashiro poses like a model. The next morning after preparing breakfast, Takashiro wakes up the girls. Turns out Akane stayed up all night and wrote down a lot of advice for Mei for her manga. The latter is impressed that she took the time to do this despite her busy schedule. Before leaving, Mei thanks her for everything and expresses hope that she will be successful like her someday. She also warns Akane that if she's serious about Takashiro, there is still so much she doesn't know about him. The next day, Akane can't shake Mei's words from her mind. She realizes that she doesn't know much about Takashiro, so she decides to follow him all day. She watches him going to a Japanese sweet shop, after which he heads to a batting center. While he's playing, Akane continues to watch him, and the owner of the place notices her. After Takashiro leaves, the owner talks with Akane and asks if she's Takashiro's girlfriend. She claims that they're just roommates and that he's helping her with her manga. The man reveals that he's known Takashiro since childhood and that he is friends with his son. He claims that although it may not seem like, Takashiro has a very painful past. While they're talking, our hero suddenly returns and is shocked to see Akane there. She apologizes for following him, and they head home together. On the way, Akane tells him that she wants to know about his past, so Takashiro takes her to a cemetery where his parents are buried. He reveals that when he was in high school, he worked part-time and gave his parents a trip as a gift. Unfortunately, they met with an accident along the way, which took their lives. Ever since the incident, Takashiro has been blaming himself for his parents' death. He admits that he tried to take his life many times in the past, but was unsuccessful. Hearing this, Akane's heart breaks and she gently hugs him. Takashiro further says that since the incident, he has vowed to never get close to anyone to prevent himself from getting hurt. Therefore, he's never fallen in love or had a serious long-term relationship. He begins to cry, revealing how lonely he really is, but Akane assures him that she's there for him. Later, around midnight, she heads to Takashiro's room and claims that she wants to sleep with him. He agrees without hesitation and tucks her into bed. He then thanks her for accompanying him to his parents' grave and admits that it's the first time he's opened up to someone. After this, the two cuddle and soon drift off to sleep. The following morning when Akane wakes up, Takashiro is no longer there. However, he has left her a letter inviting her to dinner after work. In the evening, she arrives at the said location and meets him. The two are excited about their date, but suddenly they come across a bunch of Takashiro's colleagues. Among them is his senior Kirihara, who turns out to be Akane's ex-boyfriend from years ago. The two are shocked to see each other and don't know how to react. In the next scene, our couple returns home, still shocked by the fact that his senior turned out to be her ex-boyfriend. Akane explains that back then she was very busy with work and neglected him, so she doesn't blame him for what happened. However, Takashiro insists that what Kirihara did was wrong and that he shouldn't have ended things over such reasons. He tries to say more, but finds himself at a loss for words. The following day, Akane shows her next manuscript to the editor, who praises her work. The editor also announces that they've decided to turn her work into an audiobook. This makes our girl very happy, and in the evening, the team goes out to celebrate. Later, Akane arrives home drunk and tells Takashiro how happy she is that her manga is going to be made into an audiobook. He congratulates her and tries to say something, but again holds back. The next day, Akane visits the dubbing studio and is impressed by her voice actors' performances. She then comes up with the idea of introducing a new character into her work to create a love triangle. Later, while she's working at home, Takashiro comes home and hugs her, but she ignores him and focuses on her work. Just then, she receives a call from Kirihara, who wants to meet her. She rushes out of the house, and we see that Takashiro is not happy about the situation. Afterward, Kirihara apologizes to Akane for what happened in the past. He claims that he was young at the time and too naive. He further explains that he respects her passion for work and doesn't want to leave any grudges between them. Akane forgives him and says that she understands his situation. While they're talking, she comes up with the idea of using him as a character in her story. She then asks to use him as a reference, and he willingly agrees. In the next scene, Takashiro is preparing food when Akane returns home. She tells him that Kirihara has apologized to her and she wants to use him to create her next character. Our hero is happy for her and asks her to sit for dinner. However, she's too busy and immediately begins to work. Later, we see that Takashiro has prepared a cake and a feast for her to celebrate the news of her audiobook. But when he sees her concentrating on her work, he puts them in the refrigerator and quietly watches her. The next day, Akane discusses the introduction of a new character with her editor. The latter is immediately on board with the plan, and she approves it. In the afternoon, Akane meets with Kirihara at the cafe, intending to interview him for manga. She asks him probing questions about his private life, and he answers sincerely. He also keeps staring at her affectionately, indicating that he still likes her. In the evening, Akane returns home and shares with Takashiro that she had a good time meeting Kirihara. He's happy about her work progress, but he's also jealous about her spending time with her ex. Akane then mentions her editor's request for summer scenes in her manga, so she wants to visit the beach and invites him and Kirihara to come along. Our hero sees this as the perfect opportunity to become close to her, so he agrees without hesitation. The following day, the three of them visit the beach and have a great time playing games and splitting watermelons. While they enjoy themselves, Akane continues to capture this beautiful moment in her drawings for her manga. At the end of the day, when they get ready to leave, Akane's sketch suddenly gets blown away by the wind. Seeing this, Kirihara rushes to retrieve them by the sea. He manages to bring back some of the pages and gives them to her. At this moment, he suddenly confesses his feelings for her and asks for a second chance. He apologizes for what happened in the past and promises to cherish her from now on. Kane is left speechless to hear this, and Takashiro is also shocked. In the next scene, our lovely couple is returning home when they stop and decide to set off some fireworks. During this moment, she realizes she has feelings for Takashiro and no one else. She asks him what he was trying to say the other day, but he dismisses it as nothing. Akane then tells him that even after the manga ends, she wants to stay with him forever. However, Takashiro responds that he's helping her, and when the manga ends, their relationship is also over. Akane tries to confess that she loves him, but he cuts her off and kisses her. He then says goodbye and departs, leaving her distraught. After this incident, Akane moves out of the house and begins living with Kirihara. He seems very happy to have her in his life and takes great care of her. Despite this, Akane doesn't seem to be happy and continues to miss Takashiro a lot. Over the next few days, Akane immerses herself in her work without any rest. In her manga, she makes the heroine end up with a character modeled after Kirihara. However, she soon begins receiving a lot of negative reviews from her readers, which takes a toll on her mental health. Even though her editor tells her to take a break for a while, she doesn't seem to care and continues to draw. Kirihara tries to help in his own way, but his efforts are futile. One day while Akane is working at the cafe, she finally reaches her breaking point and ends up fainting. Fortunately, the cafe owner takes her to the hospital and she manages to recover in a few days. Due to her poor health condition, her editor tells her to take a rest for a while and come back to work later. Akane still tries to work, but she's unable to sketch anything, which makes her miserable. The next day, Takashiro receives a call from Kirihara, informing him that Akane has disappeared. He also learns that she stopped drawing manga recently and is not in a good mental state. Concerned, he searches everywhere for her and eventually finds her at a shrine. The two then tearfully hug each other, and Akane tells him that she can't draw anything. She claims that if she's not a manga artist, she's no one and has no identity. However, our hero comforts her and says everything will be okay. After a while, Akane finally stops crying and asks how he found her. He then shows her the first manga she ever made, in which she wrote about the shrine. He explains that he's been reading her books since high school, especially during tough times. Takashiro then reveals that when his parents died, he contemplated taking his own life. But at that moment, he found her manga, which ended up saving his life. In her manga, the protagonist is devastated after losing his beloved dog. As he grieves day and night, the dog becomes a talking fairy and approaches him. It claims that it was never gone and that the love he has given will never die. These words deeply impacted Takashiro, giving him the strength to move forward in life. Hearing all this, Akane also becomes emotional and declares that she will not give up. With this newfound motivation, the two then visit their favorite cafe, and Akane contemplates how to conclude her manga. She explains that the female lead has always harbored feelings for the original main character, but was afraid to confess them. So she decides that the heroine will end up with the main character, who is based on Takashiro. Akane then begins writing her manga, and Takashiro stays up all night taking care of her and making coffee. In the morning, Akane finally completes her work. She then heads to her editor to submit the final part of her manga series. She explains that she wanted to conclude the series and move on to something new. The editor is surprised and encourages her to continue the series as it's gaining popularity. However, Akane insists on ending it here, as she believes it's the perfect way to go. In the evening, she tells the cafe owner that she's currently staying in a temporary apartment and needs to find a permanent place soon. Akane fears that she won't be able to afford rent without writing another manga. But right at this moment, Takashiro shows up and takes her back into his apartment. He says that as her #1 fan, he must ensure that she has a proper place to stay and write. Following this, Takashiro confesses his feelings to her and reveals that he was afraid of getting hurt if she came too close. However, now he doesn't care about anything and admits that he wants to be with her. Akane also tearfully admits that she likes him as well, and the two kiss.